Our upcoming talk of the day will be given by Dr. Maan Awad. Dr. Maan is a PGY1 internal medicine resident at King Saud Medical City. Dr. Maan will be talking on SCFHS application and timeline. Dr. Maan, thank you for agreeing to give this talk. You can start whenever you're ready.
Okay, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And hello again. So next up, I will be talking about the application process for the Saudi match. Bismillah. Okay. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Okay, all of what I am going to be talking about with regards to the timeline and the application process can be found in this link, which takes you to the booklet that is specified for the Saudi match of 2022, which is available on the website of the Saudi Commission for Health Specialties. And it is very important to go over this document because from one year to the other, this document changes. And there are a few changes that has happened from 2021 during our match as compared to the upcoming match season. Okay, so the application process, if we are going to summarize it, it can be summarized in 4 stages. First of all, the application process, which is going to happen, inshallah, next month. And then after that, we have the nomination, which occurs in March. And then we have the interview season, which is also in March until the end of March. And finally, the results of the acceptance, and that is followed by the registration process. So again, this was mentioned before, but just to take a quick look at it. So on January 9th, next month, we will have the online application open, and then it closes on January 23rd. 1 month after that, we have the announcement of the final score, the announcement of the final aggregate score or the cumulative score, which is comprised of the 3 things, the GPA, the SMLE, and the CV questions. And then on March 8th, we have the announcement of the nomination results, which is basically the first match, which is basically the match into the specialty and the city. Okay, and that is followed by the interview season from 13th of March to the 31st. And then on the 31st of March, that is going to be the deadline to for the ranking process. So it's the deadline for the programs as well as for the applicants to rank the programs according to their preference. On April 19th, we have the announcement of the final match, and inshallah everyone will be matching, inshallah. And on June 5th, that's going to be the deadline for paying the fees of training. So whatever specialty that you are going to be doing, inshallah, there is like a training fees that you have to pay to the SCFHS of the Saudi Commission for Health Specialties, and it depends on the type of sponsor that you have, whether the sponsor covers the fees of training or not. However, regardless of whether the sponsor covers the tuition fees, the first year training, you have to pay it. And then on July 28th, that's going to be the final or the deadline for completing the registration process. Again, 30% for your GPA, 50% for the SMLE, and then we have 20% on the CV points, which are embedded in the application process. So we have already talked about these two, the GPA and the SMLE, in depth. In this talk, I will be focusing more on the CV points. So this is basically how it looks. So next month on January 9th, for those who are applying for the match, they have to make an account on the SCFHS matching website, which looks like this. So once you do that, and this is basically the first part of your application. So once you do that, you fill up your personal information, training, GPA, licensing exam. This is going to be filled automatically because your grade in the SME exam is going to be is going to come up in the matching website automatically, and they are going to, if you take it, for example, 4 times, they are going to select the highest score. With regards to your training and GPA information, you have to provide, of course, supporting documents such as your transcript and so on, and they are going to be verifying it with the university. After that, you move on to selecting the programs, the program of your choice. Okay, and finally, the last step of the application is going to be the portfolio questions or the CV questions. So this is how you are going to be selecting the program of your choice. And as you can see, one of the CV points, which is actually 3 points, are given for strong interest in the specialty of choice. How do you get these 3 points? By selecting your specialty of interest in 5 different cities. If you do that, you get 3 points of your in the CV points. So we have 20, a total of 20 CV points, and we are going to go over each one of them in detail. However, 3 points are given for strong interest in the specialty. How to get these 3 points? By selecting your program or the specialty of interest in 5 different cities. However, for example, if there is a specialty that has programs only in 3 cities or in 4 cities, it's okay. You can select that, the 3 cities or the 4 cities, and you get the 3 points. It doesn't have to be 5 to get that. So again, this is basically the distribution of the CV points or the 20 points. There are 6 points that are given for research activity, which is changed from last year. That's why it's very important to be updated with the application process each year and to go over the booklet each year, because last year there were 4 points given for research activity. However, in the upcoming match season, we have 6 points. There are 2 points for postgraduate academic degree, which refers to PhD or master's or diploma. And then we have 5 points for volunteering in health societal activity. And it has to be a public activity, and we're going to talk about that later on. Then for the strong interest, as we mentioned, 3 points. And then if the applicant is currently employed in their employed in a job of their medical degree, then they get 2 points. And finally, clinical experience in the specialty of interest. That gives you 2 points. However, it has to be for a minimum of 6 months. So This is the way how you answer these questions. So, for example, as we said that the research activity has 6 points. However, this is from last year, and as you can see that there are 2 points for participation and 2 points for publication. And we're gonna get into the details of that. So I would like to share with you the booklet so that we can go over it quickly. Yes. So let's go over each question at a time. The first question is, did the applicant participate in any research activity? And by participation, they refer to writing the proposal, or as a data collector or data analysis, or in writing the manuscript of the paper. If yes, then you get 2 points. However, to get these 2 points, you need 3 documents. The first one is the research proposal. The second is going to be the IRB approval. And finally, the last document is a letter from the primary investigator stating your role in the research activity. Now, this letter from the primary investigator has to be directed to you and only you. So if you are 5 people or 5 participants in the research activity, each one of you has to get a personal letter. So the letter should not include all the participants, all of them in one letter. It has to be specified. So each one of them has to get a letter for themselves alone. Okay, I hope that this is clear. If it's not clear, please let me know. يعني الخطاب هذا اللي من البرايمري انفستيجيتور يكون موجه للابليكنت لوحده بس، للمتقدم لوحده، ما يكون فيها اسماء الاخرين. And it states the role in the research. Now, this primary investigator has to be either a consultant, a doctor in his field, or at least a specialist. And they have to be registered in the Saudi Commission for Health Specialties, and they have their own number. However, if they are not registered in SCFHS, they need to provide a letter from their employer stating their current employment status and their degree. Okay, so I hope that this is clear. Again, 2 points for research participation. To get these 2 points, you need 3 documents. The first one is the proposal. Second is IRB approval. And the third document is a letter from the primary investigator stating your role in the research activity. And this primary investigator has to be a consultant, a doctor in his field, or at least a specialist with a registration number in SCFHS. If they don't have this registration number, then you have to ask them to provide like a job letter from their employer that provides clarification on their position and their current employment status. Then we have, so that's for the first 2 points for research. The other 4 points on research are for having a publication. So you just need to have any publication and you get the 4 points. However, for this publication to be counted, there are certain criteria. The paper, first of all, has to be published already. It has to be published in a journal that is indexed in PubMed or Web Sciences. Or if it is not indexed in Web Sciences or PubMed, the journal has to be a Saudi medical journal that is well known. Now, there are certain new criteria for this, for these 4 letters, which were not there last year. So, and these include that the research activity has to be done in Saudi Arabia, and it has to be under supervision, again, of a consultant, specialist, or a doctor in his field. So it has to be done in Saudi, or a consultant under the supervision of a consultant, specialist, or a doctor in his field. However, if it was done, abroad, again, you can use it. However, you have to provide, again, a letter from the employer of your supervisor stating their role and their degree. Yeah, yes, I forgot to mention about the case reports. So case report is not counted for the first question. For the research participation, case reports are not counted. You cannot use case report to get the 2 points of participation. However, for the 2 points, or for the 4 points of publication, you can use case report. No problems with that. I hope that this is clear. And if it's not clear, please ask questions so that we can, inshallah, clarify the points. The third question is, if the applicant has a degree after finishing med school, so this includes PhD, master's, or diploma. And there are certain criteria for this degree to be accepted. First, it has to be verified, again, from SCFHS or from the Ministry of Education, or from cultural missions outside of Saudi Arabia. It has to have, the applicant has to have gotten this degree within the past 5 years, and it must not be an online degree. It has to be like the method of conducting this degree or this course has to be physical. It must not be an online degree. Does it have to be clinical research? And what if the research is from a different country? So it doesn't matter whether it is clinical or basic, as long as it is a publication. Again, if it should be from Saudi Arabia, a local research. However, if it was from outside, you have to provide, an employment letter of your supervisor that provides information on their, degree and their role and their current position. What if the PI is a professor from our primary investigator, professor from our university? Does that count? Yes. Yes, of course it counts. If they have, but you have to ask them if they have a registration number in SCFHS or not. If they don't have the registration number, then along with submitting your research, well, you have to ask them to provide an employment letter that provides clarification that this doctor is actually professor in the College of Medicine or Alfaisal. It's okay as long as, yes, you can. So when it comes to journals, some journals, they will tell you before submitting your manuscript that you have to pay for the publication to be published or not. So it's okay, even if you have paid, as long as the journal is indexed in PubMed or Web Sciences, you don't have any problems. Okay, let's move on to the fourth and the fifth questions. which is which has to do with the volunteering activity. Now, there are 5 points for volunteering activity, and you need to provide 2 volunteering activities or certificates. Each one of them is going to give you 2.5 points. Okay. Now, there are certain criteria for this volunteering experience or certificate to be accepted. So, with regards to any document that you submit on your application, it has to be verified. It has to have a stamp or a QR code, the date, sign. Make sure that all of these things are there on the certificate. Okay. Now, first of all, the type of participation. You have to be, a speaker or an organizer in the volunteering activity. The mere, attendance is not counted. So if you have a certificate of attendance, that is not actually counted. You have to participate as a speaker or an organizer. Which means that you are actively, participating in the activity. And this volunteering activity has to be organized by a Saudi university or a health agency in Saudi Arabia, or a governmental health agency outside of Saudi Arabia, which include, of course, the Ministry of Health, as well as هذا منصة التطوع التابعة لوزارة الصحة, as well as وزارة التنمية الاجتماعية. It is counted. Volunteering with the مع الهلال الأحمر في الحرم النبوي والحرم المكي برضو is counted. So you can get 2.5 points if you have participated in any of that. And just one comment to emphasize here. Make sure that in the certificate of any of these volunteering activities, it states that it is directed to the general public. This is a very important thing. It has to be directed to the general public, as you can see here. موجهة للعامة أو المجتمع. It should not be directed to, healthcare professionals. So if the activity was done in a hospital, most likely it is directed to, healthcare professionals. It has to be directed to the general public. This is something that you can, make bold on the certificate. And then the next question is, does the applicant has a clinical experience in his specialty of choice or not? So having a clinical experience, this clinical experience, first of all, has to be after the internship year and not before the internship year or during the internship year. It has to be after the internship year for a minimum of 6 months. Okay. Now, this 6-month duration can be continuous, so one clinical experience, or it can be divided into two, maximum of 2 clinical experiences. Each one of them a minimum of 3 months. So if an applicant has a clinical experience in his first or in his specialty of choice for 6 months, however, he has 2 clinical experiences. One of them is for 4 months and the other one for 2 months. Well, the 2-month experience is not counted. It has to be for at least 3 months. Okay, so clinical experience in the specialty of choice for at least 6 months. It can be 1 clinical experience of 6 months or 2 clinical experiences, each one of them a minimum of 3 months. It has to be under supervision of a consultant. So it has to be under supervision of a consultant. It can be local or abroad. Again, if anything is coming from abroad, then you need to provide like an employment letter that clarifies the position of your supervisor. And in order to get the 2 points of the clinical experience, you need to fill up a form which is shown right here. So this is the form that has to be submitted on the website. You fill this form and it has to be filled electronically and not by hand. And then you can see here the approval of the supervisor, who has to be a consultant, and then approval of the institute in which the training or the clinical experience was conducted. If, for example, one had 2 clinical experiences, each one of them for 3 months or more, then you need to submit 2 forms instead of 1. Okay. And then we get to the 3 points of strong interest, and we have already talked about that. So for having strong interest in a specialty, which is evident by choosing the specialty of choice in your first 5 ranking list, that shows a strong interest, and automatically you will get the 3 points. And then finally, we have the last question: whether or not the applicant is currently employed in a health institute. So if you are a doctor and you are working as a service resident somewhere, that is counted, but you have to be employed. So for the clinical experience, you can be it can be just a clinical attachment and you are not employed in the institution. However, to get the 2 points of employment, you have to be employed in a health institute working as a doctor. So as a medical graduate, you have to be working as a medical doctor. In order to get these 2 points, you need to provide 2 things: رقم التسجيل في المؤسسة العامة للتأمينات الاجتماعية and تعريف عمل. Again, employment letter from the institute in which you are working. Yes, so I will just show you some examples over here. So we talked earlier about the 2 points that are given for research participation, and we have mentioned that you need to submit 3 letters. The first one over here, as you can see, is the contribution letter or statement, which is basically a letter from the primary investigator or the primary or the supervisor of the research activity, stating the role, as you can see here, data collector, of the applicant clearly, and it has to have, of course, all the signs and the stamps or a QR code to verify the letter. The second one is the IRB approval document or form, which has also to be, it has to be stamped and signed and all of that. And finally, the official research proposal, as you can see right here. So this is basically how you answer these questions. You submit the file and it appears to them. And again, they are emphasizing some points over here. This is related to the volunteering activity. It has to be a health campaign provider. There has to be a signature and stamp. It has to be within the last 5 years, including the date. So all of these things have to be provided and stated clearly in the certificate. This is an example of how the certificate looks like.
معلش
ايوه
معلق هو على الملاحظ، هذا هو النموذج الوحيد يتعلق بالهيئة السعودية القصة.
كيف؟
معلق على سلايد 25.
على سلايد 25
يعني ما الصورة ما توضح انك تنقل بين الصفحات.
طب دقيقة. الآن
واضح يا دكتور.
تمام، الله يعطيك العافية. يعني شفتوا هذه شفتوها ولا؟
لا أول مرة نشوف.
Okay, sorry. طيب, this is basically the three documents that you have to provide for the research participation part, or the 2 points of research participation. Again, the contribution statement, which is basically the letter from the primary investigator stating your role in the research activity. Again, it has to have all the stamps and signs, as well as the date. All of these things have to be provided clearly in the letter. Again, this is the IRB approval letter and the research proposal. And this is how the website looks like. This is basically how you answer the CV questions points. You just submit, for example, when it comes to the volunteering activity, you just submit, you state, the campaign provider name, the campaign name, and the date, and then you submit the a PDF form of the certificate. And again, they are emphasizing these points that the certificate has to have a date, it has to be within the last 5 years, stamped and signature provided, and it has to be from a health campaign provider or a Saudi university. So this is an example of certificate in volunteering activity, which I used and it was approved. As you can see, that the organizer of the volunteering activity was Alfaisal University, so a Saudi university. It clearly states my name. There is, dates available, signature, as well as stamp of the university. And one very important thing is that it is promoting public awareness, or directed to the general public. This statement has to be clearly illustrated on the certificate. It has to be for the general public or public awareness, so that they don't confuse it with a health campaign that is directed to healthcare professionals. Again, this is how it looks when you answer the questions. So for the strong interest, if you choose the specialty of interest in the first 3 positions or 5 positions, you get the 3 points automatically. So after completing your registration process or the application process, as we said, 1 month later, on the 24th of February, you get the aggregate score announcement of the aggregate scores or the cumulative score. And one of the things that I have came across when reading the booklet for the residency application this year, 2022, is that they're saying that after you get the cumulative score, you are still able to change the ranking of the specialties that you have chosen. So I think that this is a huge advantage, because once you get the cumulative score, if someone, for example, la samah Allah, their score was low, they can adjust their specialties or the rank of the specialties that they have chosen. However, they don't clarify the deadline for changing the preference of specialties. So after that, you get the nomination announcement, which is going to be in early March, and then from the 13th of March to the end of March is the interview season. And then after the interview season, on the 19th of April, the announcement of the final matching results. And after that, you have to complete your registration. And completing your registration involves several things. It's very simple. First of all, you have to pay the fees of training for the first year. In the case of internal medicine, for example, it's 6,500 riyals. In the case of general surgery, it's 5,500. However, so you have to pay, regardless of the type of sponsorship that you have to pay the first for the first year training. And then after that, depending on the type of sponsor that you have, some sponsors, they cover the fees of training, and then you can, ask them to repay you. The registration completion process also involves registering as resident physician on Mumaris Plus platform or in the SCFHS. And then, because that is going to be part of the registration and application completion process. And then once you finish your internship, you have to provide the final internship certificate. And that's going to be it. So this is just basically an overview of the application process and how it goes, and an overview of the 20 CV points and how to get them, and all of their criteria. I hope that it was clear. If anything needs additional clarification, please let me know so that we can clarify it. Okay. Can we pay? Are courses useful in my CV? Basic suturing, ATLS for emergency medicine. I believe that these courses are, can enhance your CV overall. However, this is when it comes to, your CV when you submit it to after the nomination, for the interview season. That is going to be very helpful. So, for example, in the case of, as you mentioned, emergency medicine, ATLS, as well as in general surgery, in internal medicine, having the ACLS is also very important. They highly encourage that. So having these things can be helpful. If I want to be a speaker, do I have to register in conferences related to my preferred specialty? طيب. So for the volunteering activity, the programs are not going to see them. These are just CV points that are required in order to get, these points when you apply for residency. However, the programs are not going to see them. It's just, these are CV points that are given in order to enhance, your cumulative score or the aggregate score. So it doesn't matter whether it is in your preferred specialty or not. You just need to get these points. Even, for example, the research that you submit, just submit any paper as long as it is published, and it is published in a journal that is, PubMed indexed or in Web Sciences. That is going to be sufficient for you to get the 2 points or the 4 points this year, regardless of, whether the research is in your specialty of interest or not. Can be in private clinic. So If I open my own clinic, does that count 2 points? Well, as long as it is under the supervision of a consultant, then it should suffice. Because in the application booklet, it does not mention whether or not. I don't think that it mentions whether that it has to be in a governmental institute. But just let me check very quickly. Yes, it has to be under supervision of a consultant, and this consultant has to be, registered, of course, in SCFHS, or if it was from outside the kingdom, it's also okay, as long as you provide, an employment letter stating, the current position of the consultant under whom you are doing your clinical elective. What is the average cumulative score? Honestly, I'm not sure. I was talking to one of my colleagues yesterday, and he mentioned 74. However, I'm not sure if that's the average cumulative score or the average score in the SMLE exam. So I'm not sure, honestly. But I think that this information can be found on the SCFHS website. Research participation points are for the research we are currently working on. So the research participation, even if it was for a research that is already published, you can still use it, as long as it is not case report. If it is not case report and you have the 3 documents available, even if it was already published, you can use that. So you can use actually the same research project. If it is already published, you can use it to get the 4 points of publication and to get the 2 points of research participation. If I volunteered in a research, I need the IRB and primary investigator certificate. Yes, for the research participation points, the 2 points, you need 3 letters: the proposal, IRB approval, and the primary investigator, letter, or the contribution letter that states, your role in the research project. All of them signed, stamped, with the date, your name matching the name on the application, and all of that. At residency, what happens if I forget some topic and patient appears at my own call? Can you clarify that? I did not understand the question, sorry. Is taking additional courses such as ATLS or anything requires me to take them at 4th or 5th year of internship, or it's okay if I took them at any time? It's okay to take them at any time, as long as the certificate is still valid. So I think most of my colleagues and we took these certificates during our internship, so that it will be updated and the validity of the certificate is going to be, for a longer period of time. But it's okay, you can take them at any time and renew them if their validity, or if the certificate is expired. If I matched with a program, is there a possibility that I get rejected in the second match? Yes. And if that happens, what to do? Fine. So first of all, the matching process, first of all, you apply through the website, as I have showed, the SCFHS matching website. And then in February, you get the cumulative, score result. Okay. At the beginning of March, if your cumulative score was high enough for the specialty of your interest, you match into the city. First of all, this is the first match, or you get nominated, okay, for that specialty in that specific city that you have chosen. After that, there will be, the start of the interview season. So your acceptance into a residency program depends to a very high degree on how you do on your interviews. The interviews, basically, they are the deciding factor of whether or not you get accepted into a specific residency program or not. So, for example, I applied to internal medicine. I'm interested in internal medicine. So, on my application, I chose internal medicine in Riyadh, Jeddah, Medina, Mecca, Dammam, to get the 5 points of interest. And then my first choice was Riyadh, so I matched in Riyadh. And then after that, so I got nominated into internal medicine in Riyadh. After that, you have the interview season. I get interviews from the internal medicine programs in Riyadh, including, for example, KFSH, KSMC, KFMC, National Guard, and the other hospitals. So you do interviews with them. And then by the end of the interview season, depending on my interview experience, I rank the programs based on my preference. For example, I liked KSMC program very much, so I put them first. And then I put KFSH, National Guard, KFMC, or whatever. Okay, I do my ranking. The programs as well, they do their own ranking of the applicants. And then you have the matching process, which is electronic and using a specific, program. However, the matching process starts with you. So if I chose, for example, KSMC first, they will look at KSMC and see if my name is there, I will get the match. If not, they will go to my second choice, for example, KFSH. And then they look at the KFSH rank list. If my name is there, I get the match. If not, they go to my third choice, and so on. So if you get rejected in the second match, la qadar Allah, then you did not match. You have to apply the next year for the match. And meanwhile, you can enhance your CV. You can work as a service resident, or you can do clinical attachment or a clinical elective in order to get more points that can enhance your CV. You can participate in research activities that can help you in the next match. What was the cumulative score for internal medicine last year, and how much does it usually increase from a year to another? Okay, so for internal medicine, honestly, I don't know. I don't know the cumulative score for any of the specialties, to be honest. And I think the year before it was announced. However, for this year, I did not come across the cumulative scores for any of the specialties. And please, if anyone has information on that, please feel free to share the cumulative scores for last year. However, I don't have this information, to be honest. However, I think that it is for the most part, for all the specialties, it is becoming more and more competitive. So that's why I think you should do your best, especially in the SMLE exam, get the highest score possible, and be prepared. Even if your specialty is not very competitive, just do your best, because you never know. what can happen and what's going to be the cumulative score. So this is my advice. Like, for example, this year, we have just started the residency 3 months ago. And my sponsor is the Ministry of Health, which usually sponsors any training or resident physician who don't get, sponsors from their hospitals. So, for example, in KSMC, for example, let's say they have 25 internal medicine positions. They will not sponsor all of them. They will sponsor, for example, let's say 20, and the last 5 they have to get their sponsorship from the Ministry of Health. So this has been the case for the past few years. Those who don't get a sponsorship from the hospital in which they are training, they just get a sponsorship easily from the Ministry of Health. However, this year, the Ministry of Health said they will not sponsor anyone who is training in a hospital that is not under the umbrella of the Ministry of Health, such as KSMC. And there was like a problem for those who got accepted over there. However, they did not get the sponsorship from KSMC. And then at the end of the day, the Ministry of Health agreed to sponsor them. However, because of this, conflict that has happened, this might change, the program's number of residents that they accept. So this can also, play a role in increasing the competitiveness of programs this year. However, I don't know. This is just, my speculation, my thinking. So bottom line is to, do your best, try to get the highest cumulative score that you can in general. Even if it was, a non-competitive specialty, because, for example, in internal medicine, there are 300 applicants that get accepted into internal medicine in Riyadh. However, hospitals like National Guard and KSMC, they are not going to interview all 300. They just interview the first, or I'm not sure about the number, maybe, let's say, for example, the first 100. They select, the applicants that they want to interview to give them an interview. If I apply to cities outside Riyadh, do I have to go to all those cities for interview? No. So the first match or the nomination nominates you to the internal medicine, for example, programs in a specific region. You chose Riyadh, you will just get the interviews, and you matched into Riyadh, you will get the interviews from the programs in Riyadh only. You will not get interviews from programs in Jeddah or in Dammam. If you chose Jeddah and you matched in Jeddah, you will get interviews from the programs in Jeddah alone and not others. I hope that this is clear. If anything needs additional clarification, please let me know. And if you have any additional questions, please let me know.
Thank you, Doctor, for the presentation. If anyone has any questions, then do enter your questions in the chat or unmute yourself and ask. We have until 5 p.m. till our next session. Or you could also save your questions for the panel session at the end. Thank you.
Okay, I see one question here. So what happens if someone is not called for an interview? So once you are nominated, your name is going to appear for the programs, and they should contact you for the interview. Unless, unless they, for example, as I just said, you have 300 applicants and they have all matched in Riyadh. For example, KSMC is not going to interview all of them. So basically, they will just not send an invitation for an interview. Is it common to get rejected even if the cumulative score was good enough to be nominated? So yes, because nomination does not guarantee that you are going to get, the residency position. Nomination means that you have matched in the specialty of your interest or the specialty that you chose in a specific region. After that, you have to do the interviews. And after the interviews, the program, as well as yourself, you are going to decide which program you prefer, and the programs are going to rank the applicants. So depending on the ranking and the matching process, you either inshallah get accepted into a residency position, or la samahallah, you might not get the acceptance. However, all in all, I know so many people from some of my colleagues, they did not match this season, especially that they are applying for highly competitive programs. However, they are applying this year and they are stronger than ever, because during the last year in which they did not match, they were able to do electives, so they got 2 points. Some of them were employed as service residents, so they got additional 2 points, so they have 4 points. Some of them, they did not have research activity. They had a publication that gives them additional 4 points. So you can actually become much stronger, and you can apply to the most competitive program if you utilize this year in which you did not get accepted. So it is definitely not a negative thing. Just try to do your best. It might actually be a blessing. You might discover yourself in a different specialty, or for example, your cumulative score becomes much higher. That encourages you to pursue a residency in a different specialty that is much more competitive. So as long as you do your best, tawakkal ala Allah, or inshallah, whatever happens بإذن الله, as long as you متوكل على الله وإن شاء الله تستخير ربنا إن شاء الله ييسر أموركم, وبإذن الله تنقبلوا في المكان اللي يكون خير لكم ويكون مناسب ويكون متناسب مع رغبتكم بإذن الله.